This is IIANC Vice President for Governmental Affairs, Joe Stewart. And this video features the two Democratic candidates running for the Office of Insurance Commissioner in the March 5th primary. The questions that we asked were developed in consultation with the IIANC Board of Directors and our Governmental Affairs Committee. We hope you find this informative as you make the choice of who to support in the 2024 election.
Thank you for the opportunity. So I'm Natasha Marcus. I am a three-term state senator representing parts of Mecklenburg County, now in my 6th year. In the Senate, I serve on several committees there, including the Judiciary Committee, the Education Committee, and Redistricting Committee, 2 budget committees, and probably most relevant for this race, the Commerce and Insurance Committee. So I have a breadth of knowledge on state policy, and I understand how state government works. I know who the players are. I have a good relationship with the governor's office and the executive branch. I'm very proud of my record as a legislator. I always stand up for the working people of North Carolina. Those are my constituents. I'm always seeking equal treatment for all people, including reproductive rights. Fair elections and fair maps are so important to our functioning democracy. Public education, I'm the daughter of a teacher, the granddaughter of a teacher, and now the mother of a teacher, and always fighting for affordable health care for North Carolinians. And prior to being in the state Senate, I was a litigation attorney and a federal judicial clerk. So I know how to conduct cross-examination in a courtroom setting. And that is a skill I believe is important in the role of Commissioner of Insurance, because Commissioner of Insurance is supposed to hold full public hearings that are like a courtroom type setting to determine if rate hikes are justified. Our current Commissioner of Insurance hasn't been holding those hearings. Maybe it's due to a lack of comfort in a courtroom-like setting. But I have those skills. I'm ready to use them on behalf of the people of North Carolina. I am also a mother, proud mother of 2 adult daughters who are pursuing their careers, and the mother-in-law of a naval officer who is currently deployed. I would say also related to insurance is that in the past year or so, I experienced 3 of my most significant needs to call on my insurance, all within about a 12-month span. So I needed a new roof on my home. I had an expensive car accident, and I had gallbladder surgery. And those 3 experiences really brought home to me how important it is for folks to have quality, affordable insurance to cover us in our most vulnerable moments. I know your members know how important that is, and I do too. And I want to work in partnership with your members to do right by the people of North Carolina. I work hard always. I do my homework to prepare for whatever it is. I look out for working families, and now I'm ready to turn all these skills and my passion for public service into working for the people of North Carolina as our next Commissioner of Insurance.
Welcome, insurance agents. It's great to meet you all virtually. I live up in the mountains in Spruce Pine. I grew up in a small town, a rural area. Single dad of 3 kids. I've worked for myself since I was 22 for the most part. Started my first business then. I actually have a little bit of insurance exposure in that I helped Allianz create a travel product back when I was in the travel and event business that survives today. It was around conference and event insurance. I was a paralegal that did pro bono work in Chicago at a law firm that helped folks with their insurance disputes. So being in Chicago, we saw a wide variety of different actions, and I bring that experience to the table as well. I've worked in 50 countries around the world, so I bring a broad-based level of exposure to business and cultures and people. I sold a company when I was at 32 and joined a large public company and ran a division with 2,500 employees and 175 million in revenue. So I have run a large organization, multifaceted, multi-product business. And so I'm the only candidate running with any experience. If you're looking for that, check. I'm the only candidate that has a plan that you can view through my website. So if you're looking for details on what I'd actually do if I got elected, you can find me there. So check on that one. I'm the only candidate with a track record of actually getting things done and creating jobs. And I take that very seriously because I have run businesses, and like many of you, I'm sure there's been months or weeks when you didn't take a paycheck to take care of your people, and I've been there myself. So I can relate to everybody that runs their own business listening to this call. Looking for somebody that understands small business, you're talking to the right guy right now, and that would be another check. I'm the only candidate that is at the nexus of politics, government, I would say the people, and business, because I've been in all of those sectors, whether it was as a business owner. I have worked in state government. I worked for Secretary of State. I was a page in the legislature. I was a Senate intern. And those experiences isolated probably don't mean nothing to an insurance commissioner, insurance salespeople, or agents. But I think collectively, I can bring all that experience in government, business, nonprofit sector, and politics. Like you, Joe, I've spent a lot of time in politics and learn a lot. You meet a lot of people. You see a lot of good campaigns. You see a lot of bad campaigns, and I think the collective experiences that I have put me in a very unique position. And I think the only other thing I'd add to that is I got into this race a year ago. I've been working hard. I've traveled. Last night I was in Wilmington. That was my 143rd event. And these are live events. These are with people. This isn't just drinking beer and eating barbecue. This is talking to real people about their issues around insurance. And I've taken that learning and experience and listening and folded it into a plan that, again, WheelerNC.com. Welcome. First of all, I have met with the Rate Bureau folks early on. I think it was April or May of last year. Really good people. I mean, professionals clearly know what they're doing. And so any discussion about the Rate Bureau is not a reflection, from my perspective, on the professionalism and the people or the board there. And I'm not trying to be, politician about that. I just believe it. They're good people. They've done their jobs. But I got to wonder when the Rate Bureau, proposes these rates and then sends them over to the commissioner. Commissioner makes a decision. They publish rates, but then you've got right to consent when, the insurance companies can increase their rates by up to 250% for auto. I think it's 550 for home, 550%. What is the point of a Rate Bureau and it's not a consensual consent. It's once you pay the premium, you've consented. That baffles me. And it's a question that begs the question, I think, what's the purpose of a Rate Bureau if insurance companies can just increase rates through your consent anyway? And it's my understanding that around 40%, the Charlotte Observer did a story and did some research. Around 40% of the policies in North Carolina are subject to consent to rate or have consented to consent to rate. So I think it's time to take a fresh look at the Rate Bureau, and not in isolation. I think it needs to be done in public. I think it needs to be done with the Rate Bureau itself. They may have other justifications and reasons why this is important. But again, back to that consent to rate, I think that raises a question of the effectiveness of the rate bureau at this point. The other problem I think in rate making generally in North Carolina is the lack of transparency. Again, the rate bureau meetings are private. I think their meeting records are private. There is no transparency into how they make their decisions, the deliberations they go into. What, is it just data and actuaries, or is there some politics involved? And I'm not suggesting there is, but I think the way to eliminate a lot of that is transparency. And then on the commissioner side, there's zero transparency into how this current commissioner makes his decisions. I believe they're political, and we're not going to, start bashing on other candidates, but I think rather than making decisions in private, in secret, I would open up that entire process. I would make my deliberations, whether it's one meeting or 15, I would make them public. I'd make them publicly available, public meetings where the press could be there, where consumers and advocacy groups could be there and have an opportunity to speak. So I think that process in many ways is broken, and it's through a lack of transparency. I think people also, based upon my interactions with folks on the campaign trail, are really feeling this now. Obviously, this 42% increase, 99% of the code for homeowners is a lot of people's interest and got them interested in this race fine. But I think there's my dog, again, many of you know Poppy from our last interaction, thinks he's on camera too. But I mean, people are aware of this. They want to know what's going on. And I think the way to answer their need for more information is more transparency. One of the other things that that I would like to do is look at either expanding the rate bureau to include more consumers in addition to transparency, or creating our own consumer rate bureau that would take the same information and make their recommendations based upon broader society, consumer impact, and provide their input to the commissioner. And then obviously I would use that in my deliberations along with the rate bureau. So, because right now the rate bureau does a really good job with their data and actuarial science, but there doesn't seem to be a counter on the consumer side. I know the commissioner is supposed to hold that role, but I think if the commissioner could be broken free from representing either side and be an independent arbiter that would take into account both the insurance needs as well as consumer needs, we'd be in a better place than we are today. And I'm not saying that I would take the insurance side or the consumer side one way or another. I think it's a balancing act where, we've got to keep a healthy market. At the same token, there's something broken about it right now, and it's not working. So we've got to mix it up and try some new things. The other thing I would do is I would publish all the data. Now we may have to redact some of it for privacy purposes, and I know the insurance companies are very their data be published for competitive reasons. But I think there's probably some of that we could redact and publish to the public. So everybody could see what I'm seeing, what the actuaries on my team are seeing, as well as what all the parties are seeing. So right now, the only people that are seeing it are the people making the decision. And I think more people need to be exposed to that data and that information, whether it's the press or the consumers or consumer advocacy groups. So I would publish all that online and make all those documents public. And then I think the other thing I would do differently is, again, I would publish a rationale for my decisions that would hold up in court. So if I said no and the insurance company decided, rate board decided to take me to court, which is their right to supersede my decision or get a judge to reverse it, there would be a record on how I made this decision, and hopefully one that would be defensible, and again publish it. let folks see the rationale behind it. It wasn't politics. It wasn't this. It wasn't that. It was based upon, and my decision is going to be based upon data and actuaries and the professionals that evaluate these problems, not politics. So, and the only other thing, Joe, the other thing that I would do, which I think would be more inclusive, is I want to appoint actually an advisory board of insurance agents, because I think that's another component of this that is left out, and there's a lack of transparency, or a lack of information to insurance agents. So I'd like to have an advisory board that would also review rates and impact on their businesses and from their communities. So we have multiple parties at the table, and maybe we get everybody around the table once or twice a year to have these discussions and have debates, and provide more transparency.
You know, the current system, as you just described it, where the Commissioner of Insurance theoretically sets a maximum rate that is justified by the data, that sounds reasonable. But in reality, I would say it hasn't been working lately, for two main reasons. The first is that the current Commissioner of Insurance isn't doing what I think is the most important part of the job, which is providing advocacy for the people and transparency to keep rates from going up even one penny more than they have to. Your agents know that customers want to find a lower rate than what they're currently paying or what they're worried they might have to pay next year. Even though rates in North Carolina tend to be lower on several policies than neighboring states, people still feel pinched, and we need a Commissioner of Insurance that is going to really dig into those rates and not let them continue to go up. 19 times is an unprecedented number of rate hikes, and that's what's happened under the current Commissioner of Insurance. So I would argue that he is falling down on the job and that he is not holding these full public hearings that I mentioned earlier. You're supposed to have to justify under oath with data that is cross-examined why rates need to go up and what they need to go to. That's how you meet that statutory obligation to say we'll allow a reasonable profit, but not an exorbitant profit. And instead, the current commissioner doesn't hold the hearings. Not the previous commissioners did. Commissioner Goodwin specifically on these big rate hikes on homeowners insurance, for example. And instead, our current commissioner basically has this trust me approach where he meets privately with insurance companies. We don't know what they talk about because it's not public record. We don't know what evidence is provided. And he gets them to agree to somewhat lower rate than the huge number that they 42% statewide average that they're currently proposing. And then he basically tells the public, trust me, I made you a good deal. It's lower than what they asked for, right? But we don't have any transparency. And I know your agents get questions their customers about, wait, why are my rates going up and why is this what I have to pay? And these public hearings would provide the transparency your agents could show to your customers about why that is the rate that is justified. I want to reiterate this, a vibrant marketplace of insurance companies. We want insurance companies to make a reasonable profit, so they'll keep writing policies here. If we, drive them out by saying you can't ever raise rates, that's not helping anybody. But we don't want them to be able to squeeze North Carolina consumers for excessive profits. You need to find that right balance. And I don't think our current Commissioner of Insurance is doing that because he's skipping this important step. And then number two, we have to talk about massive loophole of consent to rate. It's one thing to say the Commissioner of Insurance is setting what the maximum is, but it's a joke right now because this loophole of consent to rate is being overused and allowing insurance companies to charge a number of their customers up to 2.5 times the supposed maximum rate that the commissioner sets. So we have to fix that legislatively. As far as I know, the current Commissioner of Insurance has not tried to fix that. He seems content with allowing insurance companies to keep running around his maximum rate and charging so many customers so much more. I've noticed when he's asked this question, he typically wishy-washy answer about, well, I'm open to suggestions. But, we need an active advocate for the commissioner of insurance who allows customers to keep getting overcharged and overcharged. So what I would do if I'm commissioner of insurance, and I will be, hope I'll have your support in that, is that commissioner of insurance has the power to call hearings at any time and have insurance companies come and testify. And I want to know how many consent customers are there for these different insurance companies? Who's getting CTR'd and why? What are the patterns of that? Is it certain zip codes? Is it certain income brackets? And how much money are they making on this huge loophole? People tell me all the time, my rates have gone up even though I didn't even how that happened. Well, this is how it happens. And I don't think North Carolinians understand that they're getting taken advantage of. And I don't think the current commissioner of insurance is fighting the way he should be for North Carolina consumers. So that's my answer. I think we can do much better than what we've been doing.
Right.
Seem to be a hot topic right now to consider whether this is something we should change or whether we should keep it. I listened to that entire committee hearing at the legislature when it was held. I noticed that the current commissioner of insurance doesn't know how to answer this question either. Kind of surprised me since he's had 8 years dealing with the reinsurance facility and knows the pros and cons and maybe would have an opinion. So far be it for me. I've never been the commissioner of insurance to opine on exactly the correct way to handle this issue. I do acknowledge that auto rates are lower here than all our surrounding states, so the system seems to be working. I think you mentioned, our rate is lower. So that folks, and certainly wouldn't want to do anything that would make it go up. We also have a lower percentage of uninsured drivers compared to other states. That's important because uninsured drivers are bad for all of us who do pay insurance, obviously, and that's in part because of the existence of the facility that allows them to get insurance when they might otherwise have a harder time. So I understand the arguments that the facility may be benefiting risky drivers at the expense of safe drivers, and if so, we should know the extent of that inequity and work to alleviate it. I think we need some hearings on that. We don't have all the data. You mentioned that 25% of policies are in that reinsurance facility. I think there's a little bit of question about exactly what the recoupment fees cover, how much people even understand about whether that's being charged fairly. There's some thought that insurance facility are lower than in the private market. I don't think that is true, but I know that even the general manager said that clean risk drivers should be paying more than they're paying. So there's a lot to look at here. I am open to thinking about options, maybe tweaking the current system that we have, making sure it is as fair as it can be. Obviously, I favor safe drivers. I also don't want to push up the rates of insurance for riskier drivers or young drivers, as someone who recently had to help insure young drivers in my family, to make it so crazy high that people decide to go without insurance and break the law in that way. So again, we need to find the right balance, and I'm open to talking about possible.
I think anything that would make our market more competitive is important. And if that means taking high risk drivers out of the pool, I'm all for it. I don't think there's anything wrong with that concept of good drivers not having to pay for bad drivers' mistakes. However, I think if the government's going to be in that business, and it is a nonprofit, government-ish organization or government-sanctioned organization, maybe we need to expand it, frankly. One of the things that I'm hearing from a lot of folks, especially in rural areas, is seniors. Seniors that drive less than 50 miles a week or 50 miles a week are paying, are getting hit as hard as anybody that's driving 1,000 miles a week. So I'm wondering if there's any way this facility could be expanded, and obviously it's going to require legislative action. It's not like to do literally, but I'd like to open the discussion. Should we create other special classes to put in either a separate pool or a similar pool underwritten by the state and with bonds, and it wouldn't require a bunch of cash up front. But to take seniors out of the pool, because I have heard dozens of stories from seniors across the state where they drive 10 or 15 miles a week to the store and back to the post office, see their grandkids, and their rates have gone up as much as yours and mine have, Joe, but they have clean driving records and they have older cars, but their rates are still climbing up. And I believe we ought to look at creating some special classes that emulate the pool facility, or create some new reinsurance facilities. Because again, I come back to something's not working when seniors are being essentially penalized or having to pay higher rates because the market is driving them up, when they're not really part of the market or contributing to the market. They're not distracted drivers. They're not drunk drivers. They're not speeding, but they're being penalized for that. So again, a long answer to a great question, but I think we need to look at maybe some ways to that, either that facility or create new pools. And if we're going to do that, then maybe we need to look at special pools for public servants. That's the other area that I hear a lot about is, we have folks that work for us, whether they're cops or firefighters or teachers or other public servants. They're paying a larger percentage of their income without cost of living increases and other increases. And it's starting to affect their ability to do their jobs, in that, they're more worried about paying their insurance than they are maybe performing some of their tasks. And so again, we're getting into a weird area where Republicans, Democrats certainly don't agree. But, if we're going to have pools for high risk drivers, why don't we have pools for low risk drivers, or pools for public servants? And if that helps level out the market or drive more competition somehow, I would be all for that discussion. I'm not saying that I would unilaterally just do that. But I think we need to open that sort of discussion on reinsurance facilities and whether there's a broader role they could play in North Carolina. Well, I think one of the first things we should do is update our building codes. It's my understanding building codes haven't been updated in more than a decade. And that affects our insurance rates, because the new homes being built aren't being built with climate change in mind, with effects of climate change in mind, and that affects all of our rates. So I think one of the first things we need to do is update our building codes to reflect most modern building materials, the most energy efficient, the most weather resistant, rather than, and I don't mean anything against our friends in the home builders, but taking the cheaper route, which is maybe have a short-term gain, but has a long-term effect upon all of us. It needs to be addressed. The other thing I will do is I'm going to appoint a senior deputy commissioner for climate change. And I know, that's well, it shouldn't be a controversial issue, because I'm a guy that's driven by data and facts, and factually and data wise, we're clearly in a cycle of climate change. And this Department of Insurance, I don't even think knows how to spell climate insurance or climate change. So I would add a senior deputy commissioner that would focus on that issue. And I want to put together a task force, a statewide task force of folks from the industry, from outside the industry, from consumer groups, with a very narrow charge, which is, how is this affecting insurance rates? And what sort of things can we be doing to mitigate them? and it's not just don't build in flood zones or don't build on the coast. I think it's broader than that. I think, the mountains and Piedmont also has issues related to climate change. Piedmont's had tornadoes that North Carolina's never seen before. We actually had some spin through up here in the mountains. Now, they weren't as severe as the Piedmont, but we've had tornadoes come through here, and nobody's ever heard of tornadoes before. So I think putting together a group of experts, a group of advocates, and they're not all going to agree with each other, and it's not, some of the meetings probably aren't going to be real pretty, but I think putting together a task force, come up with recommendations that we can take to the legislature around climate change and its effect on homeowners and homeowners insurance and auto insurance, to see if we can mitigate some of this now instead of waiting for the worst case scenario. I mean, my biggest concern about me taking this job is I take the job in the spring of 25. We have a bad hurricane. I am very concerned that we're going to be the next Florida, frankly, in the insurance market, because we are so exposed on the coast and the inland lower lying areas that we run that risk. And I think we need to get ahead of this. We need to start having this discussion with folks about, and we can take climate change out of it. We can just, if people don't want to believe in climate change, we can have that discussion without those words. But the reality is, here's the thing. Here's my second concern, Joe, is not only do I not want to become Florida, my second concern is nobody seems to be focused on this issue at all. I know the insurance companies are, and that's their business. And I know local communities are and local folks are, but nobody at the state level, nobody in the Department of Insurance seems to understand this is a crisis that's about to hit us big time. And so I'm going to bring some urgency into this office to address the issue in a transparent way. We're not going to do any Dick Cheney behind closed doors deals here. It's all going to be done in the public. It's all be done in a public way with public input, experts input, agents input. But we've got to come up with some sort of plan or some sort of solution to this, because it's just hanging there right in front of us. And we are literally I've been told by experts in the industry and others, we are literally one bad hurricane away from becoming the market for insurance that Florida is. And that obviously is going to affect all of us in dramatic ways, not only cost, but impacting our lives. And so I'm going to bring some urgency to the flood insurance, hail and rain, as well as coastal region and inland, that I don't think the insurance industry's seen for a while. And it's not going to be top down. It's not going to be me dictating or what Republicans will say is a typical Democrat, kind of nanny state. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about having real discussions about the seriousness of this, and not just having discussions. It's got to be results oriented, and there's got to be something tangible that we can bring to the legislature or Congress, move forward on this issue, because flooding in the coastal regions is serious, and it's affecting all of us in ways that I don't think most people really realize. And so we've got to raise that. Or I think one of the other things, we've got to find a way to get private market in here, or private insurers into the market. And I don't know what that is. I'm going to have to rely upon probably you guys and other experts, but I'm pretty good at selling and marketing and cajoling folks and getting them into a room and trying to give them a reason to come here. But I'm going to need the ammunition to do that. And I don't want anybody to be listening to this to think that I think government is a solution to everything, because it's not. However, when we've got big catastrophic potentiality and large issues that require a lot of money, I think government should be the issue, or could be part of the problem, part of the solution. And so I'm committed to try and get people in a room to do this. And obviously flood insurance, I've seen the numbers. Some think some counties have less than 1% of flood insurance, folks with flood insurance policies. Even on the coast, it's below 50% in some places. And that's just not acceptable. I think we need to start writing these policies into broader homeowner insurance policies, or as a requirement to get a new mortgage or getting a new mortgage. Because, and again, I don't want government coming down on people, but they don't insure, and there's a catastrophic event, we're going to have to pay for it anyway somehow, because either through subsidies or other ways. So again, I think flood insurance is important, but I think if you've got a leader at the top that understands that, you'll see.
So flood insurance is going to become more and more important as climate change gets worse and worse. I am somebody in this race who understands that climate change is real and that it has a direct impact on the number of storms, the severity of those storms. Not all necessarily blow your roof off hurricanes, but flooding happens more frequently, and claims go up, and everybody's cost of insurance is going to go up. I know this is especially important in the eastern part of our state. So I assume you and your members are a little concerned about this impending deadline. The NFIP's authority to provide flood insurance is currently set to expire. When is it? Early March. And the National Association of Realtors and many other groups are really trying hard to secure this long-term reauthorization of the program. Because if it lapses, then FEMA would stop selling and renewing these policies for millions of property owners, Carolina and elsewhere, and this would be a disaster. So Congress needs to quit creating this uncertainty. They've done it time and time again. Previous Commissioner of Insurance, Wayne Goodwin, was in the office. He got together with other southeastern states and went to Congress actually to lobby them to renew the NFIP. I don't think insurance is doing anything on this to advocate for the renewal of the program. I wish he would, because I think it's really important. As you mentioned, there aren't really alternatives for North Carolinians right now. There are private flood companies that offer flood insurance, but we need to encourage them to come here and offer those policies here. They might be higher than what NFIP can offer. We don't know. But again, we need a proactive commissioner of insurance who's looking for options. As far as the new system of assessing risk, they're calling it Risk Rating 2.0. I know that that's expected. It sounds to me like only about $10 per policy on average in North Carolina. So that isn't great news that it would go up, but we need this program to remain available in North Carolina. Obviously, we have a lot of low-lying flood-prone areas. We have not joined that lawsuit to contest that new system. I think it is a more modern rating system, incorporates catastrophic models and actuarial science and relevant data. So it is attempting to determine actual risk-based pricing direction we need to go to have a market that reflects the actual risk. We could also pursue a state-based plan as an option if we can't get private insurers to come. If God forbid the FEMA program, the NFIP, isn't renewed, I would hope we could get some cooperation from our state legislature to create a state-based option, because otherwise, what are folks to do? That would be a very conservative state-based approach instead of relying on the federal government. So that would be something I'd advocate for if we don't have the more. I also want to mention that I want to acknowledge that there are critics who say that this offering affordable insurance in flood-prone areas may encourage people to buy pricey homes in flood-prone areas, and that might not be good public policy. And the federal program is repeatedly bailing them out, and maybe that's bad. These repetitive loss risk issues, and I've struggled with what the right answer on that is. I think it's important to note that not all the homes that need flood insurance are mansions a lot of them, probably the majority of them, I haven't looked deeply into that data, are actually working families' homes that are in low-lying areas. So I think it's important that we have flood insurance that's available to all North Carolinians. And as far as, building homes in flood-prone areas and whether we should continue to rebuild building codes and local incentives, and then the resiliency efforts, and incentivize people to seek out. So much like with law, where I had to do kind of similar things to maintain my license, I know that national standards are good. We certainly wouldn't want to say North Carolina agents should be held to some lower bar than everybody else. And it sounds to me, just based on your question, that that your members would like to see some changes, and I welcome input on that. It's one of the issues that I would hope to address when I convene an advisory board of insurance agents and meet monthly with them as commissioner of insurance. Something I think is going to be very important for me to be a good commissioner of insurance, to have a good relationship with your members and agents across the state, to hear from you on exactly this sort of issue. The one issue I will say that I already know a little bit about is this frustration some people are feeling with the Pearson VUE. It sounds like there's been some frustrations and maybe they're not the best vendor. So I think if that is a common complaint, I don't really have a sense of, is it a small handful of people or is it the majority of people are having issues with them? But I think it'd be warranted to audit the quality of their service to the agents here in our state and see if we need to offer alternative vendors maybe in that case. Because it's certainly important that we strengthen the pipeline of young professionals coming into the insurance business and then keep the ones that we have in the industry as well.
I probably want to spend an afternoon with y'all to learn a lot more about what your thoughts are in this, because obviously I'm not in the insurance business, but smart enough to know where to go to get the good advice for that. My philosophy on it is the government ought to be encouraging. The industry ought to be there to help the industry. You got to regulate and keep the bad guys out of the business and bad women out of the business. But I think that is less of a concern to me than helping businesses grow, helping agents see the department as a resource rather than a hindrance. So a couple of things I want to do on the licensing side is, first of all, I talked about forming an advisory board of agents and folks that are in the insurance industry in North Carolina. And I'm serious about that. And I want that group to meet regularly, and we'll meet all the way around the state. We're not just going to have folks come to Raleigh. But one of the things they can do is provide me with that feedback on the continuing ed side. Is it good enough? Is it expensive? Do we have enough suppliers? I know in the past, the department has provided that training. Should we go back into that space, or is the private sector handling it? But I'd like to, get that advisory group up and running. And again, it's going to be a diverse group. It's not just going to be my donors. It's not just going to be Democrats. It's going to be Republicans, Democrats, everybody in the middle. And it's going to represent all parts of the state in all aspects of the diversity of the state, including people and big agencies and little agencies. So I think that will be helpful. I think the other thing is I'd like to see, and this is a little bit off topic, but I'd like to see the department form a fund with private sector involvement, nonprofits involvement to encourage the growth of insurance in North Carolina, whether it's through increased continuing ed, more sophisticated continuing ed, or loans and grants for agents and agencies to expand. The insurance, as you and your members know, insurance industry is a steady business for the most part. Some years are better than others, obviously, but everybody has to have insurance at some capacity or other. And the salaries tend to be steady and increasing over time, and it's a good business to be in. And I see insurance agents community agents and independent agents as the folks that are driving a lot of growth in local communities, and why the department isn't out helping those individuals either find additional agents or additional staff and encouraging them to expand their businesses beyond me. And it's something you'll see a significant effort from me to help local agents grow and take as many regulations out of the way as possible. I'm not, again, I'm a Democrat, but I'm a business. I grew up in obviously running my own businesses, and the last thing we need is more regulation, frankly. And that's not to say we're not going to regulate, because obviously every market or every product service has bad actors that will take it. I don't see the role as DOI to be the traffic cop here. I think the DOI should be traffic cop plus economic development officer that's going to help people. So I'd like to see more of that. And I also think that if there are businesses that want to start in the insurance industry, whether it's insurance tech, I know you all have put significant effort into building insurance programs at three of the universities in the state. Well, let's expand that. Let's expand it into community colleges for insurance careers, whether it's actuaries or salespeople or management or adjusters. Let's professionalize and increase the professionalization, because I think that helps everybody. And I'm committed to help y'all expand the market. Prices up, supply down. It's a hard market. I get it. I've been there myself as a business person. I think one of the first things that I would do, and everybody hold on to your hat, but I would work with the legislature to try and eliminate tax on policy. That benefits nobody but the state treasury, and the state treasury is full right now of around $4 billion. The department itself is not self-funded. We have to go back to the legislature every year and ask for an allocation from the general fund. Now, obviously, we create revenue for the state, but I believe that we need to eliminate some of those taxes, with the one caveat that it's got to drive prices. So we can't just create a situation where insurance companies use it as a windfall. We can tie to elimination of taxes to a decrease in policy costs, and maybe we split the difference, whatever. I think that would help, because it'll send a message to the industry that we're serious about promoting the industry and helping it grow here, and it would help consumers even if it's a couple $100 a year. The other thing I would do is, and again, I like getting into the weeds. I like the weeds. I would love to work with the Department of Economic Development and come up with some new ideas around how to incent additional companies to come into the market. The global insurance market is fairly healthy and vibrant, and a lot's going on. Why don't we tap into that and see if there's some opportunities to bring some of those companies into our markets? Obviously regulate them and do our own due diligence on them and put them through the paces. But one way to increase supply is obviously to increase competition. So I would have a voted effort to try and bring more product companies into the market. I think that would help your members, because they're going to have more companies to sell or have better prices for their customers to move into. I'd look at the alternative markets too. I don't know why we wouldn't be pooling or co-oping, encouraging certain industries and to create new products, whether they're underwritten by themselves or in conjunction with some of the underwriters. But, one of the things that I have talked about is creating a state nonprofit insurance organization for certain markets that are being underserved. And I don't know exactly what that looks like, but I know we're doing it in the auto insurance for, some of the higher risk drivers. Well, again, we talked about it earlier, but I think we ought to look at some of these markets that are high priced, and see if we can provide a solution there that's public-private partnership versus just letting it hang there. And because consumers are being hit, and I do feel like we're in the middle of an insurance crisis. And other than agents and companies and Joe and David, not a lot of people are talking or doing anything about this. And I'm very concerned that people are going to be pushed out of their homes because of this market we're in right now. And it's happening. I mean, people are being pushed out of their homes. They can't pay their mortgage insurance, or they can't pay their homeowner's insurance. And the mortgage company says, well, you don't have homeowner's insurance, so we're going to default. You're in default, and we're going to kick you out. And we don't want to go that route, because, once we have a large population of homeless folks, or pushing them into apartments or rental situations, we're going to have the same problem when a disaster occurs. So I think there needs to be new solutions, new ideas, and new energy brought into this market. And I'm willing to work with y'all and work with the industry to come up with some of those solutions. And then look around the world, look around the United States, and find really great ideas that have been tested, and bring them into North Carolina. I think it's interesting that Alabama's, I saw before we got on today, Joe, that Alabama's homeowners market, the average cost has gone down. Now, that may mean the real estate market's down or something, but they have coastline, we have coastline. They have a high Black population, we have a high Black population, people of color population. And so they're doing something right there. Maybe we need to figure out what that is and bring it in North Carolina, or at least pieces of North Carolina. So I'd look at those alternative products. I think a real distracted driver campaign is needed. That is clearly part of what's driving costs up right now. Inflation has kind of stabilized a little bit. The supply chain has equaled itself out and seems to be flowing again. But distracted drivers are clearly driving up costs through accidents, irresponsibility. And so maybe we need to incent drivers to not be distracted, or incent insurance companies to incent drivers not being distracted through technology and other ways of monitoring that. And then the only other thing that I would say about this hard market is markets don't like instability. Markets don't like political turmoil. And some of what we're seeing now is related to lack of transparency, lack of stability in government, and lack of political will, honestly. I think if we had a more transparent North Carolina Department of Insurance, the market would actually respond in a very positive way. Because, listen, I meet with a lot of people. I've heard from a lot of people, from insurance folks to bail bondsmen to collection agencies to firefighters, and all people want is fairness. Fairness. They want a level playing field. And that's not happening at DRI right now. And I think that's part of the reason why the market is so in it's like turmoil, that is a tough market.
So this is top of mind. I know I've been down to the Wilmington area and Eastern North Carolina, Northeastern, and they are worried about this. So I think the first thing within the Commissioner of Insurance's authority is to keep rates low no matter what. So again, I will go back to, we need to have proof from insurance companies that is in these public hearings that we have not had under the current Commissioner of Insurance, to say, what are your actual profits? What is your the extent of your actual what kind of losses are you looking at actually based on all the data? And how much you pay in your executive salaries and other things. So what are your actual profits? What do you need to charge in North Carolina to make a reasonable profit? Because I do think that we haven't had those hearings, so we don't have that data. And I expect that they're higher than they need to be already. And this current recommended, proposed 42% statewide and 99% rate hike on the coast is just an outrageous number. And we shouldn't just settle it, which is what I predict the current Commissioner of Insurance is going to do in some private settlement. We should have a public hearing and make sure rates are actually fair. So that's one thing. Some of the problems that you've mentioned, Joe, are just out of the hands of the insurance commissioner. I wish by electing me, I could tell you that would give me a magic wand to fix all these things. But global reinsurance market, sorry, that is beyond what any one person can handle. Here's another big issue that is beyond what any one person can handle, which is climate change and sea level rise and the increased storms that are happening because of it, the frequency and the extent of the damage caused by these storms. And it's not just on the coast, it's also in the Triad, but it's also in the mountains in Charlotte near where I live. So the storms impact all of us. And we have to come to grips with that. We cannot continue to elect people who want to deny that this is happening and that it's important that we try to mitigate. I will work with the urgency that is required to work with anyone who will help us mitigate the risks of climate change here in North Carolina. I think that's so important, not just for insurance rates, although that is where it really hits people's pocketbook, realize the impact of climate change. But it's just important for the future of our planet that we quit denying climate science. Another important program that we have here that's been really successful in North Carolina is the Beach Plan and the FAIR Plan. I know they have new names, but everyone, they're long. And so we keep calling it FAIR Plan. I have already met with Gina Hardy, who runs those programs. She's fantastic. She has been able to make that nonprofit stay viable and provide great resiliency programs to encourage people to fortify their roofs and reduce damages, encouraging companies to write policies on the coast. We need to do that. Independent agents are the key to helping customers find that best policy for their needs. So they shop around and they are aware of what kind of coverage they need, whether it's flood insurance or whatever it is that's necessary based on where folks live. So I wish I could solve it all. I would say one thing that I would do that I don't think our current Commissioner of Insurance is doing very much is to really get involved with the National Association of Insurance Commissioners, the NAIC. I know our previous commissioners, both Jim Long and Wayne Goodwin, did this. Go to the conferences and schedule these outreach meetings with prospective insurance companies and meet with the Department of Insurance here in North Carolina, recruit them to come. That helps a hard market when you have a vibrant marketplace with more insurance companies wanting to do business here. So far I'm unaware of any meetings that our current Commissioner of Insurance is doing. If he has done, if he is, of them. But I would say we need a more active Commissioner of Insurance who's working to increase the options for North Carolina policyholders. We'll also mention that hard markets, it's cyclical, right? They come and they go. So I'm not ready to say we should change the law every time the market changes. I'm not sure we need changes in the law right now as much as we just need advocacy to deal with the hard market that we're now seeing.
Listen, I take this job very seriously, and I try to bring a little bit of sense of humor and levity to it. But there are life and death experience or decisions being made in this office that affect a lot of people in North Carolina. I don't feel like we have an effective advocate, not only for the insurance industry, but for consumers. And I am dedicated to being the nexus of the industry, consumers, nonprofits, and government, and come up with solutions that work for all of us, that are executable, that aren't just pie in the sky, as I call it, government gobbledygook. But something that you can, and gobbledygook is actually a word, is something that you can take to the bank. And I'm committed to doing that. I have a track record of doing that. I helped start a nonprofit here in Mitchell County that started telehealth into 2 schools, free telehealth, underwritten by grants from around the country. We're up to 225 schools now, providing free healthcare to students in schools all across North Carolina, 13 rural counties. And that's the kind of work that I'm going to do for when I'm Commissioner of Insurance. Bring action, bring people together, but do it in a transparent, honest, and open way that, again, the current commissioner doesn't seem to understand is important and part of his job. So I do have a Democratic primary. And again, I'm the only candidate in the race with a plan. I'm the only candidate that's been in the race for a year, listening and learning and traveling across and listening to folks. So I appreciate it. If you're a Republican, to become an unaffiliated and vote for me in the Democratic primary, or if you're unaffiliated, take that Democrat ballot, because you're going to have an advocate in that office. You're going to have somebody that's going to get things done and help you guys grow your business.
So I believe it's time that we had a new commissioner of insurance who will work hard for the people of North Carolina to keep insurance rates as low as they possibly can, to ensure companies want to do business here, and that they're financially sound and pay their claims fairly when they do business here. Someone who will hire professionals to investigate insurance fraud and do so on a nonpartisan, non-discriminatory basis. Someone who will take the advice of agents like your members, who are closest to the people of North Carolina, who are buying insurance every day and understand their needs. I am not going to promise you, just like I have not promised the voters, that I will never allow rates to go up in North Carolina if you elect me, because I think you understand this is sophisticated enough to understand that is actually not good for our insurance market to say rates will never go up. Rates sometimes have to go up, and that's to encourage a vibrant marketplace. But my promise to you is that I will ensure that there is transparency, and that if rates have to go up, they're not going to go up 1 penny more than what is absolutely justified. And you're going to know why they went up. And insurance companies are going to have to prove that they need to go up. And I think that's so important, and it's been missing now for 2 terms. So I will bring that transparency back. I've always advocated for the people in my role in the Senate. That is always my focus, and I will continue to do that as Commissioner of Insurance. I have the legislative experience to do this job, understand how state government works, have relationships with not just state legislators, but also in the executive branch. And the litigation experience that I mentioned, I think, is very important. We need somebody who's not afraid to hold public hearings and cross-examine evidence. And stand up for the people in that capacity. Dig into this consent to rate practices and figure out how overused is it and how can we solve this. We need a solution that doesn't overburden agents with a bunch of paperwork like the old system used to do, but also that is not unfair to consumers and not allowing this what's supposed to be a limited loophole in rare cases to become almost the norm. It's not okay with me that this is happening under the current Commissioner of Insurance, and I want to put an end to it. I have received the endorsement of every group that both my primary opponent and I have sought the endorsement of, and I would appreciate your endorsement and or your vote in both the primary and the general election. I promise to be the Commissioner of Insurance who works for the people and who listens to agents in our state to better serve the people of North Carolina. My website is natashamarcus.com. You can read more about me there. You can reach out if you have any questions. I answer my own emails and would love to hear from you. And I think I'll leave it there. I appreciate the time.